fun and games. It's not a senior citizen outing. I'm going to ask you to refrain, if you'll be so kind, to refrain from the applause, because I do want it to be serious, and I am being serious. What's happening there is not bingo night, and the stakes are very high. And just as many of you here have had the occasion and the opportunity to live proud, productive, and peaceful lives, and to pass on your legacies to your children and your grandchildren. That's what we're talking about in the case of the Israel-Palestine conflict. It's not about trying to score ideological points. And it's not about cheap applause from far away from the battlefield and from the death and destruction. So I'm going to use my opportunity here not to try to evoke applause from anyone, and not to try to evoke animus or hatred from anyone. I'm going to try to use my opportunity here to speak about how to end the conflict and how to let people there, everyone, live exactly the kind of life that most of you have been able to live here, namely a life of personal dignity and a life, as I said, that enables you to live in peace, a productive life, and a proud life. Now, and if I can make a suggestion before I continue, there are many people standing up, and of course you have every right to exercise your right to hold up your banners, but I would recommend, and it's only a recommendation, that you fill up the empty space here, sit down, and let's try to talk. So if you want to take advantage, just let me wait 1 minute, just step down and sit down so we can talk. And it doesn't have to be the lions and the Christians in the arena. So far as I can tell, in the world in which we currently live, the only basis for trying to resolve the conflict is to look at what international law has to say. That is to say, the basic legal principles upon which the whole of the international community agrees for resolving the conflict. And in fact, if you look at the actual record, there's nothing particularly controversial about the Israel-Palestine conflict. It's remarkably uncontroversial. It's remarkably straightforward. So allow me to try to illustrate that point. Most of you here have heard what's called the peace process. How many of you have heard that term, the peace process? Good. And as most of you know, or some of you know, it's usually said that there are 4 very complicated issues for trying to achieve peace. And those issues are, the technical term, they call it the final status issues. Namely, the issues which are said to be so complicated that they have to be put off to the final stage of negotiations. So that's why they're called the final status issues. And those issues are borders, settlements, East Jerusalem, and refugees. Those are said to be the most complicated questions. What are the borders of Israel? What should be the borders of a Palestinian state? What is the legal status of the settlements that Israel has built in the occupied West Bank? And what is the legal status of the 500,000 settlers, Jewish settlers in the West Bank? To whom does East Jerusalem belong? And how to resolve the question of the several 100,000 Palestinians who were expelled from their homeland in 1948 and their succeeding generations. So, those are said to be the complicated questions. And let's look now at what the record shows. As most of you know, the most respected legal body in the world is the International Court of Justice, sometimes called the World Court. And in July 2004, the highest judicial body in the World Court, it had to rule in the following question. The General Assembly put to the World Court the question, what is the legal status of the wall that Israel has been building in the West Bank? That was the question that was put to the 15 judges. But before the judges could answer that question, they had to answer a series of preliminary questions. What does that mean? Basically, it means the following. Israel has been building a wall that goes deeply into the West Bank. It will probably end up annexing 9.5% of the West Bank. Now, if Israel had legal rights to the West Bank, then obviously the wall would not be illegal, because Israel would be building a wall within its territory. So the court had to rule, is Israel entitled to any of the West Bank? Number two, the wall takes a winding route that incorporates 80% of the settlers in the West Bank, 60% of the settlements. So the court had to decide, are these settlements legal? Because if they were legal, then Israel obviously has a right to build a wall to protect them. But if the settlements are illegal, then Israel has no right to build a wall to protect the settlements, because the settlements have to be dismantled. Number three, the wall cuts right through East Jerusalem in order to keep large numbers of Palestinian Arabs outside the wall and the maximum number of Jews inside the wall. So the court had to rule, to whom does East Jerusalem belong? If it belongs to Israel, obviously Israel has a right to build a wall within its own property. But if East Jerusalem belongs to the Palestinian Arabs, then they have no right to build the wall. Well, what did the court decide? Bear in mind, we're talking about the highest judicial body in the world, composed of 15 judges from around the world, including the American judge Thomas Bergenthal, a Holocaust survivor, including Rosalind Higgins, the British judge who is Jewish.